the show now. Come on. Bad black mama's gonna let you know now. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Come on. Let's chit chat. Let's chit chat. Let's chit chat. Sis. Hey, let's chit chat. Let's chit chat. Let's chit chat. Sis. Hey.
How is everybody doing this evening?
Hello.
Doing fantastic, yes.
So we are back on the porch tonight, and we have a guest with us, Miss Deb, and our favorite co-host, Chauncey, JB. How's everybody doing this Sunday?
Yeah. What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the porch, Deb. Welcome to the porch.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you took some time out, Jay, to take a breather. I know I saw you the other day on your Facebook. I'm like, Jay be playing them drums. Like, shout out to you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I get a video lesson?
Yes, I do video lessons, virtual. Yes, yep. We get you some drums and let me know, and we'll set up a Zoom. I got you.
I want to get the drums like the ones from PlayStation, like those kind of drums. But you teach me like how to play drums because I don't have no money to buy a drum set.
Listen, well, you can do like I did. I started out on pots and pans.
Really?
Okay, so you can get you some pots and pans. That's exactly what I started out with. And you only got to buy a set of drums. Some water buckets. I get you set up a little kit and we get you going, right? We start you tonight.
Okay, yeah. Okay, because I don't want to get off track, but I just wanted to tell you that, Jay, because I wanted you to give me a lesson. Because like back in the day, I used to think I was Sheila E. Then I thought I was Apollonia. I thought I was all the Prince. I thought I was all Prince's women because I love Prince. So
yes, Prince empowered women. He empowered women.
I was one of those women.
Bands. He really did. He was a monster, a genius with that. He really did.
So I need to know how to play the drums. So
Okay. I can see you on stage. I can see you doing your thing. I can see you now.
I can't sing, so I can play the drums. So I'm gonna hold you to it. So the ninth episode is one of our series of Secrets of the Black Family. And this one is a really good one. And I'm going to put a disclosure out here right up front. We are never here to offend. We are always here to uplift. So this episode is about crime in the family, and crime in the family far as in the Black family, in our culture. And we are graced by Debbie today. And Deb, she is in the law enforcement arena. So we just wanted to get her feedback on what she actually sees. And we're thankful that you're here, Deb. But before we get started and start having just conversation about crime in the family, we're going to talk about our situations of what we see in our family. And you're a woman of color, and Chauncey's a woman of color. We just want to talk about historically what we see, culturally why things happen the way, and crime. Crime in general, is plaguing our communities. And what can we do as people of color to try to bring that divide together, as much as we can, because us four can't sit here and solve world crime ridden neighborhoods. But I think we can have episodes like this to help enlighten people to try to do better. I just feel like that's my take on it. So before we get started, just give us a little brief background. We want to keep your privacy, but just a brief background on what you do now, Deb.
Okay, my name is Deborah Harris. I am a mom, child of God, all those things. I've been in and around the law enforcement over 30 years. Mm-hmm. Also have a degree in human services and behavioral health.
Awesome.
And lived in Philly all my life, seen things that you wouldn't believe, that make me want to cry a lot, make me think a lot, and try to understand what is going on. The family dynamic to me is the most amazing thing that I think of, or like I would say want to change, but I can't. I can only put a little parts in it, or my thinking or my experience, or listen to people and kind of figure out what's the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me and a lot of families, even with crime and all other things, is not what you did, is how did you get there?
How did you get
What
there?
happened?
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Great point.
That's a great point. How did you get there? You know, and I think we can touch on that. I'm from Philly, and I probably can relate to how do you get there? You know, I can think about a lot of people that I grew up with, and you know, the road turned in different ways for many of them. And
Mhm.
I thought about when they were kids, and probably we joked about their home life, but their home life was where it started. You know what I mean? It kind of started where they didn't have many things, or things that were going on, people didn't really address. But I grew up in the, you know, the 60s and late and 70s era, and the family unit was a lot different than what it is now. You know, not to say that families now are not more engaged with each other. I think that it's just because a lot of different factors, that dynamic has really changed. So when I was growing up, the block we grew up was, we lived in row homes. Everybody knew everybody. Even though you knew their family's kind of personal life, you were engaged in their personal life in some sort of manner. You know what I mean? Especially when it came to come to the children. Like if you saw kids acting up or something like that, you know, the parent was more receptive to say, hey, you know what? If I find out you're doing something, they're going to correct you. And then when I get home, you know, it's going to be, I'm gonna correct you too. I'm gonna whoop your ass. So it's gonna be something where it's gonna be I don't have to worry about the parent coming in cursing me out, and it's going to go away. And you know, and grandmom, and I'm not putting down young grandmoms today, because it seems like the age gap has changed a lot now, and that wisdom unit is a little bit smaller. I'll just say smaller, because when my grandma was in my life, she was really I would say the lead matriarch, and my mom was there, but her wisdom was so guiding in our family. You know, it was just that some things you just didn't do when grandma was on the scene, you know, but those times have really changed. Saying that, we still had criminals in our family. You know what I mean? They was invited to Sunday dinner. Everybody kept their damn pocketbook close, because we knew that Roy and Robbie was invited to dinner. They're probably going to rob you, if you know, and they're not going to rob you with a gun, but they're going to steal something out your pocketbook. You know what I mean? But they've been robbing the neighbors in the neighborhood. We already know they've been doing it, but we won't turn them in. You know what I mean? Because they're our family. We're not going to, we rather keep dealing with Robbie and whoever, because they're the family. We're not going to turn them in. But we know that they got some big issues, and they even rob us, and they do shady stuff to us. But that's how it is. But I think it's even worse now, because I think people know, and you live in Philly, Deb, you saw the incident where the dude had a freaking arsenal in the house. You know what I mean? He had launchers and all kind of guns, and it was right next door to a Muslim daycare center. And they just waited till the man just practically went off, and then everybody wanted to come up and say, well, we kind of knew, you know what I mean, that he was in there waiting for World War V to come launch, because he could take the whole block and Temple University down with it. But we ain't said nothing. We're not going to tell anything. So, you know, how does that look now, and why do we think this is going on? So I'm going to go to you, Chauncey. Why do we think that this is really going on, and why can't we change this behavior? Because I just said a couple things. Crime in the family, Black family, is something that has been going on forever. You know what I mean? Do y'all agree with that? Do we not?
Well, I don't think it's any more prevalent in African American families than it is in white families, right?
I don't agree with that.
Okay, so I think that how we handle it is different.
That's what I just said.
Right, and I think how we handle it is different. I think that how it's presented publicly is different.
Yeah, but I'm gonna stop you right there. That's the point that I'm making. So why? Because I don't want to bring in and make a comparison to Caucasian people. I want to just stick right with us, because this is what this topic is about. So why do we see this as something that we have been doing for so long? Because we know that everybody's family has nationalities, whatever. But when we think about crime in our family, we do a little bit different when we think about other cultures, because we got snitches and things like all kinds of types I haven't even touched on, and I hope Deb can jump in. But I don't want to, and this is for everybody before we really get started, I don't want to bring in another culture, because I want to stick to our culture. So let's not stray into that, because that can go into so many different arms. So I apologize, Chauncey, I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to make sure I clarify before it leads into something else. Okay, go ahead.
I think that it is, like I said, how we handle it, and then our relationship with law enforcement.
Okay.
We have a natural distrust with law enforcement, and we've been given reason to historically. So I think that some of it starts there. And having the mentality, if we go back a few decades or whatever, that we can handle it better than turning them in, and then we'll never see them again. We'll never, there won't ever be any redemption or whatever the case may be. And then historically, we have often been accused of things that we haven't done. Yeah. And so then when that line started to blur, and we did do it, so we had the family members who were like, oh my gosh, they would never do that. I raised them, and I didn't raise them to be that way. And so I think that that's kind of where it began and it started. Crime is, of course, has always been around, and I don't care who you are, people have always committed crimes, right? So that hasn't changed. But I think that having that natural distrust of law enforcement and them not being in your corner, I think that that's what kind of feeds into what has happened over the years and over the decades, and how things have changed.
Jay?
I agree with Chauncey 100%. In the Black communities, there's never been much trust for law enforcement at all. So if I have to protect you by not turning you in, then I'm going to protect you by not turning you in. So I think that is a huge reason why. And then you can throw in there shame of the family member committing the type of crime. Like if it's a crime of pedophilia, something of that nature, that, you're shame of that, you're not going to want to turn them in, And then you got also the equation of gangs, that, the retaliation of your own family and the gang that they are associated with if you turn them in. So those are things that I feel are real factors in our community, but none to me are as great as just the simple fact that it's been very hard for the Black community to trust the judicial system, that we're going to be treated fairly and equally in the hands of the law. So with that unfortunate relationship, I agree with what Chauncey's saying, that you just don't trust them as you should, Now, there are some, though, you do something, your ass is going straight to jail. It don't matter who it is or nothing. There is still that tough love, I know, in some of the communities, that, people turn in their own children.
Sometimes you have to turn them in.
But I think overall, I think just the trust issue with the judicial system has been why I will, if I have to protect you by not turning you in, then I'm going to protect you more so than you having to go away and do your time, because they can eventually either end up dead or in jail if they don't turn from that life of crime.
Yeah, so, I think I agree with you, Jay. I think about, me, Chauncey, and Deb, we kind of talk about it. We had like our pre-call just to, warm up to each other. well, not Chauncey, you know what I mean? But when we think about like crime in the family, you know, you guys know the story. My grandmom and my aunt was, you know, taken from this world by murder, and you know the whole um, trial and trying to figure out how we even got to, you know, their lives being taken so viciously. You know, you become you know, so staunch in your memories of who could possibly be so mean that they want to do this to, you know, my loving grandmama and my loving aunt, you know what I mean? Because the house wasn't broken into, you know, it was somebody they let in, you know. So you start thinking about family members and you start saying, hey, maybe we should have turned in so and so because you know them. They've been always doing something, you know what I mean? And I don't know where they're at now, but because we try to like limit our conversation or our contact with them. But I've heard, you know, and I'll put quotations. I've heard they done killed a couple people and they did this and they did all kinds of things. So let me go and, you know, all bets off now because my grandmama is everything to me. I think I'm just going to turn them in. You see what I'm saying? Because I think that this warrants me turning them in. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, things have to be like at dire straits where you start turning people in. And it kind of broke a lot of people's trust and we actually, I told Chauncey that we found out one family member was already dead because they was trying to rob somebody and got electrocuted. So you didn't even know that had happened. Like they were gone, they had been dead for several years, but you just didn't know that something happened to them. But it took something horrific to happen where you started to self-identify. But how many other people that go through these situations don't do it? So this is where I'm gonna come back over to Deb because I'm sure you have some valuable wisdom that you can tell us, because you don't have to tell a situation that I know that, you know, being in law enforcement, that you probably run across these situations because there is a disconnect somewhere because the trust, like Chauncey and Jay says, is very fragile, you know, because we don't have a history of having support or we have a history of being deemed as criminal or being held responsible for things that we haven't done and so on. It's a whole laundry list, but the trust is not there, to make a long story short. So what kind of things that you can share with us that, you know, just in your room that you can share with us in these type of situations that you think could help? You see what I'm saying? Because I think it's this barrier that we need to have more discussion with. What can help? Because you live in Philadelphia, I live right outside of Philadelphia, but we know that crime is, and this is all over the country though, is skyrocketing. You know what I mean? So, you know, and that, as I see, there is no difference in children, women, whatever. People are being afflicted with murders and all kinds of violations. And we're not even going to touch on sex trafficking. All kinds of things are going on. So, your thoughts, Dad?
Well, and first, I know in law enforcement, they take the oath to protect, to serve, and all of that, you know, we're held to a higher standard. Community put us way up on the pedestal, put people, but we're still human. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are things that they shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. They know there are certain ways to handle situations. I just believe it's communication. I would want to know where that particular family or that particular community, and I can't say for all, where did the distrust end for you? because we can watch the media. We have seen much arrests, all on TV, things that are happening, how police handle things. And then law enforcement officers, DEAs, FBI are all grouped into one category where they're all bad. You can't trust them. First of all, you don't know every officer.
Right.
You know, that is their profession. You don't know them personally. We don't know if they have people in their family with crimes or been murdered on the street or even been murdered by another officer. We don't know these things. And I think communication would be the key. If you're on a certain job and you can see the resistant, you can see they don't want to talk to you, you can kind of like, somewhere you got to go in empathy, you got to go in grace, you got to go in mercy and say, okay, this family member just got killed. This family member somehow is apprehended of talking to me. How can I get to a place for them to feel comfortable to talk? And the media never shows where law enforcement do great things.
Yeah.
And if they showed enough of that, maybe the community can say, well, you know what? They are trying to get the kids off the street. They are doing basketball tournaments. They are doing fundraisers. There is communities or organizations that saying, hey, let's go on a trip. Hey, let's talk about your feelings. But I know they have to make their money, so they're going to make everything bad.
Right.
And that is not always the case. Right. Yes, is there some in law enforcement that I think that should not be on the job?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't become in law enforcement to be a crook, to be mean, to be a killer, to be any of that. It was already innate. You just carried it with you on this profession. And I just think the most thing to get to trust is communication. We have to communicate. I need to know why you don't like law enforcement. Did they mishandle the way they arrested a family member of yours? Yeah. Did they mishandle your report? Did it not turn out the way you wanted it to turn out? Did a detective not get right back to you when you thought they should? What is the mistrust? What is the issue?
Well,
I'll
be honest. I think it runs deeper than that, Deb. I think that some of the things that, and this, let's just put the elephant in the room. I know you want to say something.
Okay.
I'll let you say it. Go ahead, because I don't want you to forget. Did you want to say something, Jay?
No, I was just waiting in response to what Deb was saying about law enforcement. I do agree that there are a lot of good things that law enforcement is doing. As a nonprofit organization I'm a part of, we work along with them in an alliance in the community events and doing different things. And I see that. I do believe that boots on the ground that are visible and interacting and in a way of accountability. And what I mean by that is, for instance, and there are times that an officer has clearly gone too far, that another officer is intervening, that there are times that an officer is in broad daylight or whenever it is, that he has stopped another officer that is going too far. And I think that would start to reestablish some of the trust that, okay, we realize that there are good people that have the right heart, the right intention, and are not biased, that are in law enforcement, and they're going to do their job and do it right.
Right.
We know that officers do not become racist after they join the academy. We know that. And I don't want to go down that tangent too far, but just to simply say is accountability, I think, will really help reestablish trust. And, doing the community events that I'm a part of, doing that is great. But when the boots are on the ground in that moment, when you go into that neighborhood. You know, in that time that you see a fellow officer that is gone too far or is quick to prejudge or do whatever, that they show some accountability at some point. I think that will really help establish some of the trust that, okay, the good officers that are doing their job and wear that shield proudly are not going to let someone take advantage of another potentially, you know, person might have been an offender or not, but you know, the level of the way you're what's you're apprehending them or whatever you call that, you know, how you're handling them and all of those other kind of things like that. You're just not going to let them cross that line.
Right.
When I think that's a part that would help with some of the trust, but most importantly, just boots on the ground. You know, this is what young people in the community just need to see: more officers in the community that aren't there only when they have to arrest somebody, that aren't there only when, you know, they're being called for domestic violence or chasing somebody, but they're there, you know, as visible help to the community, you know, to protect and serve. So that serve part, I think that would be a part that would really help start to reestablish some trust.
Well,
and I agree.
Oh, go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen even, well, on social medias, platforms where officers are out in the community with the community and somebody's filming. They're dancing together, they're jumping rope together, they're doing all that stuff together, and that's good. But it needs to be on the media. I agree with you also. Officers should stop another officer if they're way out of line. I totally agree with that. Yes. And I know some of the I know why they don't do it. Some of them. Now, there are some that I do know that will call you out in a heartbeat, will write up memos, will go to a supervisor. Some of them because they get what they call blacklisted.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to get, as you call it, like punked out, talked about.
Right.
Nobody
so like bullied within the law enforcement. You'd be bullied within the precinct because you are a guy that's holding coworkers accountable.
That's like some old Klan stuff. I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but it's like some old Klan stuff. But if you think about it, that's where this didn't happen overnight. This is centuries of behavior that has actually migrated forward. A couple things before I just roll it back to we're talking about the law enforcement side of it, but before I jump to our side of it, the cultural side of it, boots on the ground. That's really a good point you brought up, Jay, because if you think about it, back in the day, did we not have a lot of our police officers in our area that lived in the area, mingled with the neighbors? We knew them. They walked around. They were socially engaged.
Walking the beat.
Yeah, right. And that was just the norm. And let me tell you, that's what happened with Camden, New Jersey. People talk terrible about Camden, New Jersey. I used to hang in Camden, New Jersey. I remember this time I went to a house party in Camden. I probably was like 19 years old. Me and my cousin went, and they kicked the door down. The whole house fell. The frame fell off the house, and I could just see the Ben Franklin Bridge. And I was just saying to myself, Lord, if I can get across that bridge, I'm not coming over here no more ever again. And my dad was like, ain't nobody tell you to go over there. You know how Camden is, right? You crazy. You fooling around with Camden, right? You trying to hang out with your people. You better get back over here. Long story short, y'all know how Camden is now. Camden got it together. When I say they got it together, because what people said they shouldn't do, they did. You know what I mean? Right. They did. They're all on, in their neighborhoods. They're talking to the people. And so they're making the people not feel intimidated. You know what I mean? That's a big word. Intimidation, making me feel that you can take my life. You know what I mean? You can destroy my livelihood. All of those things and above make people withdraw from you. You see what I'm saying? If you become, now I'm not saying you got to be my best friend, but you got to build trust with people. So you got to get into the trenches with them. And now Camden has built up, you know what I mean? You can walk around Camden and all that nonsense is not going on in Camden anymore. So they did, you know, and the major cities are reaching out to Camden to say, hey, what did y'all do? You know what I mean? What happened? What did you do to change this around? Because Chauncey, you know, Deb, you know, how Camden was. Camden is small, but you didn't go to Camden. You wouldn't be missing. So, you know, it's a big switch. But, you know, we're talking about the law enforcement side of it. And I just want to switch this around really quick because I don't want to be remiss to say we understand that that we have issues with law enforcement. Our trust is very wavered when it comes to law enforcement. But what about our relationship with our family and knowing that the accountability for ourselves, you know what I mean? Where do we, you know, change that behavior? You see what I'm saying? Because we can hold police accountable and say, hey, you know, I need you to be your brother's keeper. If your paired up partner is over there acting a fool, I need you to turn him in. Or if you're a little bit aggressive, you need to not be on here. You need to be behind the desk, or so on and so on. You know what I mean? Or y'all need to be boots on the ground here. Y'all need to see these kids out here suffering. You need to try to help them and get in, you know, stop it before it becomes, now they are aggressive teenagers and they're out here. But what are we doing to say, we already know we have issues too, because we got to make our efforts in this as well, because it's not one-sided, because the topic of this is crime in our family. You know what I mean? We already know law enforcement is coming, because once Lil Pook already messed up, they coming. They may not come the way we want them to come, but they coming one way or the other. They coming. So, you know, and maybe this doesn't reflect on things that we know right off the top of our head, but we do know things that happen where things don't get addressed. I mean, Chauncey.
Are you saying, I just want to make sure I understand you. Are you saying not just the not turning them in part, but you're saying, are we condoning their criminal behavior in the families and just not confronting them about being criminals?
Right. And it's
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think it's the same word that you're using, Jay. Accountability, right? So accountability is for the law enforcement as much as it is for us. You know, so like Kimmy said, and the point that she brought up in the beginning, I know that you have a certain history, right? And so if I'm your mother, what am I doing as your mother? See, we're saying families, but we really got to break it down even a little bit further, right? So if you've had a possibly problem child or problem teenager, right? So
you know they are. Let's just call it what it is in this scenario. Right. We know their ass is out there committing crimes.
They out there committing crimes.
Right, doing something that they're not supposed to do.
Right.
Are we just saying to them when they come in, you know what, you know you're wrong, right? So don't be calling me when things get worse. You know what I mean? But they still coming in your house every day and going upstairs to their bedroom and doing whatever. Yeah, don't be, you know, don't. Because my thing was, I told the kids, I don't know if I'm right or if I'm wrong, but I told them, if you did it, don't call me.
Don't call you.
Don't call me.
I told you what my grandma said. My grandma said, I ain't coming down there to look at you behind the bars. I mean, you can tell you that right now. I'm not coming down there to look at you behind the bars. If you do something, and she used to always have this long saying, then you might have to kill somebody if they try and do something to you. But if you go out there stealing, I'm not coming down there because you don't have to steal. Somebody you know gonna give you a meal. You know, I was like, Grandma, that is not true, but okay, I'm going along with you.
Because I told my son, if you get locked up, you set up, you wasn't sure, it wasn't you, give me a call. But if you know you did it and they want to call your mama, you don't have no mama.
and don't get me wrong. Let me just say this much. Don't get me wrong. Things happen to people all the time. Right. But I'm saying don't behavior. You know what I mean? Think about this, because I know people like we grew up with, their kids were stealing and doing horrible things. And we know a couple like doing crap now. They doing things, and I'm not talking about they doing vicious things, you know, and they coming up in your house, laying up in your house. Like, okay, I don't want to just hear that you didn't kill the neighbor, you know what I mean? Kill the neighbor and you coming up in the house, you can't come up in here. You can't come up in here. You know, so but these are the things that's what I'm talking about. Just like you said, Chauncey, we condone these things.
Right. So it's crime like drugs, right? Is crime like drugs. So like they used to say marijuana was the gateway drug, right? If you smoked it too much and too long and you did too much of it, it was the gateway to harder things. So is that the case for criminal behavior as well? Is there a gateway that is going to all time? You know, and so I think, Deb, you have brought up points and conversations, you know, outside of this regarding this is like, you know, how do we get there? How did we get here? And where did we not cut it off at? And what part do we play or could we play in making sure that it doesn't get any worse? You know, my husband works with adjudicated youth. And so, but these kids are 12 and 13 and 14 with criminal records. And what he's trying really hard to do is to help them and try to get them rehabilitated then at that age now, even with the mistakes that they've made, so that it doesn't turn into a lifelong or a short life lived in committing more crimes.
Well, let me just say this before you answer, Deb. I just want to just say this because I think you gotta be really careful when you say stuff how people get there. You know, I think it's so many different factors and so many different layers. You see what I'm saying? Of how people get where they are. When I was young, I made a lot of mistakes. You see what I'm saying? And I think we all make a lot of mistakes. I don't want to say smoking weed get you there, because when I was young, I smoked weed and did little crazy things too. But at the end of the day, Jay, you know, when I was young,
yourself.
I don't care what people think, because at the end of the day, I was a young person. I was young, and you know, I don't care what people think about me, because I live a good life. You know what I mean? And I don't point my fingers at anybody, but that's here or there. But the thing that I'm saying is, I know how my parents was. You know what I mean? My parents did not play with me. You know what I mean? That was not up for negotiation. But as soon as I left that house, I was like, I'm going to try this because I'm grown. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't doing it in Nate Austin house. Hell no. And then I was like, well, that's not for me. You know what I mean? That was not for me, because I always knew what Nate Austin raised and Joanne raised. You see what I'm saying? And that wasn't for me. So I chose what I knew I had instilled in me. But that still didn't stop me from making other mistakes coming down the line, you know.
Can I add something real quick, though, Kimmy? This is a real quick point I just wanted to say. I don't know if we mentioned the household lack of income. In other words, if you're
poverty.
Yeah, you're hustling because that's what's putting food on the table. So your mom is allowing you to hustle because that's what's putting food on the table right now.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to go to.
That part is a huge factor in, unfortunately, a lot of the communities. Yeah. That's what's feeding, putting clothes on the little brothers' backs.
And they not think about what somebody's law enforcement or whatever. They gotta eat. And
I'm not gonna turn my child in. I'm not. I'm not. I'm gonna go to school and I'm gonna have his back when the teacher's saying that he's being disruptive and the teacher's saying they're doing it. I'm gonna have his back, and I'm not gonna snitch on him. I'm not gonna tell anybody on him. I'm gonna protect him in everything I can, in any kind of way I can. Yeah. Because he's hustling and bringing money into this house.
Yeah, and you think about that. Do we think that's right? No, but that's called survival. You know what I mean? That's their world. That's what they can call survival. So we're not condemning anybody on what they say, because that's what they chose and that's how they're living. And that's reality, because that's what a lot of people are doing. So I'm like, I ain't going up against and tell the cop, he just dropped $1,000 on the table when he got here today, but he also dropped a Glock too. So I don't know how he got that $1,000, you know what I mean? But he dropped the Glock on there too. So I don't know who body on there, but he did. But we got $1,000. We can pay the water bill. I can buy some shoes, and we got some food coming in here. And what I don't know, I just told him, don't be fooling around. I'm gonna give him the speed. Don't be messing up, because I don't want nothing to do with that. But you still have to think about, I don't have no other means. So poverty plays a huge, huge factor in this. Huge, huge factor. Because what do people say all the time? When poverty goes up, so does crime. You know what I mean? So does crime. So I don't want really, I hate for people to think that, you know, we're judging anybody, because I don't want to judge anybody.
No, I'm not judging nobody. No.
Because that's what Jay said. I was, you know, I'm thankful that you said it, Jay, because I was going to lead into it, because Jay is a peer recovery, and he talks to, don't you talk to is it the inmates or people on probation? I don't want to.
Yeah, on probation or parole, right? I'm a peer recovery specialist. So yeah, I have referrals from the Newport News and Hampton Probation and Parole Office. So everyone is on probation or parole and has substance abuse addiction and or mental illness in their record. And so yes, we have group sessions, but absolutely, Kimmy. And then I also go around when I can. COVID's kind of slowed all that down, but talk to the adolescents at the juvenile correction centers. But I tell you, the most that I really like talking to are the young ones that maybe have been identified as at-risk youth. And the one thing I say to them is that, you know, I love talking to you all the most because the other ones I talk to have already locked up, and trying to speak to them on a preventative mindset. You know, I kind of agree with you saying too, Debbie, about the mindset you said early on in the show about that mindset in the home. So it starts with that. But unfortunately, you know, a lot of crimes, as we were saying, are in the homes, and there's not going to be anything said about it because of the current situation. And that's the part there that's is going to, I don't know how you're going to ever change that, you know, because this is the reality of, you know, the lifestyle, like you said, survival in the hood.
Survival in the hood.
And sometimes the criminal element is the family that some of these, or the only family that some of these people have.
Yes, good point,
so
Johnson.
they become more like family than even their own family. And so a lot of being in the life, I believe, is due to loyalty, as opposed to, you know,
and upbringing. Right.
Because they had a lack of upbringing. You know, we came through that crack epidemic, because that's exactly what it was. But so many kids were raising themselves. They were either being raised by grandparents or great grandparents, and no one to check in on them, or they were raising themselves, or that criminal element took them in. And so then therefore you're talking now, that's been 30 years. So technically that's like almost 2 or 3 generations within that 30-year time period. So the mindset has completely changed. And, you know, Deb, I'll let you speak more to that because you have more experience with that. But just from the outside looking in, that's definitely what I've seen. And I've heard them say that, you know, they treat me better than my own family. So then, yeah. And then we go back to saying, so then where does the family's responsibility, you know, come in with some of this? Because Kimmy, your question was, do we turn them in? How do we, what line, what line draws it for each and every family? Because it's different, because yes, there are a lot of families where that person is providing food and finances and stuff, but it's a lot of families where they're not. And so, you know, what do we do? Where's our responsibility at? What do I say to that son or to that daughter when I say to you, okay, listen, you can't come here anymore. You can't stay here, and you can't do both. You can't break bread at my table. You can't. And there are a lot of families that are struggling, and they're in that situation, and they have the heart to tell that child or that family member, I don't care. I don't want it. I'd rather starve. I'd rather do it out than to have it this kind of way because I can't sleep at night. And so putting them out versus turning them in. And like you said, there's just so many different dynamics to this. There's no one.
Everybody ain't gonna be like Biggie Smalls' mom in the hood. Right.
Biggie
She said, get out of here.
Biggie
She
mom,
just told
yeah,
him
put
in a
him
Jamaican
out.
accent, boy, you get out of here. She threw his
put
cocaine
Biggie
away.
out.
She flushed his cocaine, yeah.
Yeah, she put
She
Biggie
flushed
out.
his cocaine down the toilet. You can find me
Mhm.
and mama's get that
Right.
bold.
So that,
You
and
know.
so that I would be curious as to, you know, any type of success stories or any type of situations where you've seen where something positive has come out, or you know, families that have struggled with making that decision and but still made it. And you
Right.
know, they
Sure,
were
they're
And,
able
I,
out there.
and I'm
They're
sure
definitely out
there's some, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you have to trust, you got to trust that this is not the only outlet that you will have in life. You know what I mean? If you trust and believe that your son or your daughter is your financial backing, being in the world selling drugs to keep you afloat, then you know what sentence you have given them. Is that what you want for them as a mother? I'm sure plenty of people have turned the corner and said that that's not what I'm going to sentence my child to, jail or death. You know what I mean? Because one is coming. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's just a topic to say that everybody's situation is not the same. Why? Not to justify it, but it is something of reality. So, and I know that you're probably, you know, being in law enforcement, you see all kinds of different scenarios, you know, and, you know, if you want to share, you know, something that you see, but just to be able to get ready to wrap this up, I think that we still have the biggest thing that hinders both entities, the culture and the law enforcement side, is that the lack of trust and communication is debilitating to being able to get to another milestone of reckoning, of saying, how do we resolve where we're at to make it better for these issues that we are trying to fight now, which is crime, poverty, and our social standings. Because if you live in a crime-ridden area, people are always being scared to tell on their family members or even their neighbors. You know, you can't be feeling like you're secure. You know, that's also debilitating. You have no opportunity to do different, you know, because of just the situation that we're in this time, and you don't trust law enforcement. You know, that's very challenging. That's very challenging. So this didn't happen overnight, and this is probably not going to change overnight. But we didn't talk about the big elephant in the room, and the trust that we have with law enforcement is back to what we see on the media. We have seen multiple people of color gunned down by the police. You know what I mean? That exasperates, you know, to 1,000 degrees how people of color feel about law enforcement. You know what I mean? And then when you see it go through the judicial system, where some people are just acquitted, and you say, how could that be when, you know, you didn't realize what the charges was, and how that when it gets down to a jury, that what they were charged with, it would be no possible way they were going to be found guilty, but you didn't understand at the beginning how they were being charged was already the setup for them not to be found guilty. So it's a lot of different factors that we're fighting with that we'll never solve on this episode, but just to be able to start to say, hey, how do we start to join these divisions between the culture and law enforcement, because we already know we're very challenged. So Deb, not to because you've done a great job tonight, and we appreciate you being here. Just in closing, you know, maybe you can give us some helpful suggestions. So I'll just start with you, and then I'll go around to Chauncey and then Jay.
Okay. Well, first, I wanted to go on the law enforcement. We have to do an internal situation with us first, before we can really go into the community. Because even with the community of distrust, of not knowing, it's also in law enforcement, within ourselves. And if we tackle that and then come up with something where, if the community see, as you said, Jay, boots on the ground, an officer stopping another officer from going way too far, stopping an action that should not be done. I think that will maybe start it a little bit, you know, like, hey, okay, they are doing something. Oh, right. They did stop that officer. Well, I'm glad that the officer stopped him because he had no business doing that. Mm-hmm. And then within law enforcement, we don't have to worry about being blackballed. Right. We don't have to worry about being bullied. We won't have to worry about being, oh, don't talk to them because they're snitch. Mm-hmm. If we can come together and do that, I think things would start helping with the community. As far as the family, a lot of the families also, as you say, their means of your street pharmacists. That's where their money's coming. That's how they eat and how getting clothes. Sad to say, I know a few people that are in that predicament. And I don't judge it, but for me, I would be kind of scared of what could happen to me, because not only if you not selling your quota, not paying the money, if they can't find you, they come into the next best thing, and that's family. And I don't think people really think about that their life can be in danger also. How they don't, that's why maybe they don't turn them in. Maybe they don't turn them into their supplier. I don't know. Mothers that don't turn their children in also, single moms. Didn't raise them right.
Right.
Feel guilty because they weren't there.
Right.
Perhaps they worked too much. Perhaps they were on drugs. Perhaps the father not in the home and the child really is resentful and blaming them. So they're acting out. What is a single mom to do? What is a single father to do? What is a together mother and father to do with a child that does not feel that they belong, that they are loved? Because parents, I'm too busy. I got my own stuff. What do you want me to do? And I think we have to, in the family unit, perhaps, they have to have a conversation, see where the breakdown is, because just like generational curse, it just happens in the family. Generation, mom and dad got this child, raising it the best way they can. The child feels they're not getting what they need. Now they have children. It just cycle just keeps going. And and it's like, you can be there physically, but if you're not there emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that child is not getting everything of you.
Right.
And that's where all the love, because in a child, they only going to go by what their family say. As you know, they have things, oh, you ugly, you too dark, you this, and that. Whatever families say to children when they're growing up. Somebody like us, Jay, that has the groups and all of that, come and say, you're beautiful, you're amazing. They're not going to believe that, because they're only going to believe what their family told them. You're bad, you're nothing, you're just like your father, you're this, and that. So you tell them that enough, they're going to go out there and be like that. So I think it's your words, as they say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie that they told us for years.
That is a lie. That's right. That is a lie. Words hurt.
Words hurt. And if it's not corrected, it can be a whole big balloon. And that's why you have the kids out here that's doing what they're doing. And what I meant, I wanted to clear up when I said, how did you get there? I guess I was on the facet of those that murder, those that rape, those that are molesters. That's what I mean. I mean, like, you got your weed smokers, you make mistakes. Lord knows I made enough.
Shout out to the weed smokers.
I don't even know why it wasn't in the system. But what do you say?
You should shout out. Don't listen to him.
Cannabis consumers.
I think we need to get the village back again in our own families, because the neighbors, we need the village again. The state, the government then said you can't beat your children. You're taking prayer out of school. You're doing all kinds of things. And it's like,
working against.
Where is our power? What do we do now?
Where is our power?
Where is the power? We have to gain it back. We have to come back together as a family, rather it's blood or rather it's your next door neighbor or your friends that you met at work, that you've been friends for, that you school. Hey, I need your help. I need your help with my child.
Yeah.
Maybe you could say what I've been trying to say to them. They'll listen to you. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had that happen. My aunt would say, I said the same thing. And it was like, I couldn't get through. I said, it's how you say it.
Right.
It's the approach.
I agree.
Amen.
It's definitely the approach. Because if they're mad at you, they're not going to listen. If they feel that you don't love them, they're not going to listen. But they'll listen to the bull in the corner. Right.
I agree.
So,
Deb, I thank you for being here. Like I said, we never have enough time to talk on the really, really good subjects, right? But it's just to kind of put a little, bug in the ear and to just have us think about certain things. And I feel like communication, you said that's the key to a lot of this. It's the biggest key to all of this. Communication, whether it's internally as a family, whether it is with law enforcement, whether it's with government, all levels, communication is really key, right? And understanding what people are saying. We hear people, but we're not listening to what they're saying, right? We hear families, but we're not listening to what they're telling us. And I think so, in addition to communication, I think education is also key. When we know better, we do better. When we know what's out there and we know what we're fighting against, I think that is what kind of helps us and propels us, right? Every family looks different, right? So every family's not going to have, the nuclear family, the mom and the dad, or two parents in the home and a 2-parent household and 2 family incomes and, all of that. It's not going to look that way, but it doesn't mean that we get to leave them behind because their family doesn't look like what we consider to be a normal family or whatever. So I just, again, I thank you. Communication, education, and accountability. I still go back to that word that Jay used, accountability, and on all ends, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's government, whether it's families, we need to have accountability for what we're doing. And it most definitely, and being able to rely on each other and having that community again, right? That village again is so important. I would not have been able to, even being married and raising my children, I would not have been able to do what I was able to do with them if I did not have a village, if I did not have that shared responsibility and people and grandparents that were willing to help, and godparents and my siblings and so we all needed each other, and that's how our kids were able to to be good. And no, we weren't perfect. We've made mistakes. Kimmy just said it. She made mistakes. I've made mistakes. We've all made them.
You smoke weed too, Johnson?
No, never have.
You're so terrible. Oh God.
Alcohol is always been my drug of choice. I ain't gonna lie to you, but
somebody stop him.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing is, like I said, it doesn't make any of us I've made so many mistakes. But the other thing, and I'll say this not to get off topic, is for parents to admit to their children about the mistakes that they made. So that my mother never pretended that she was perfect, ever. She actually told me too much, but it let me know that she was normal, then I could be normal, so that if I fell, I could get back up again and I could start all over again. But if you have parents that put themselves on this pedestal and then you're constantly trying to live up to them, then you're not going to have communication, because now you're too ashamed to go to the people that you're supposed to trust the most with everything and find a way out. So I'm finished, but thank you.
And one more thing with children, nieces, nephews, you have to let them tell their story. You have to listen to them. Rather you think it's far-fetched, rather you believe it did not happen, it is their truth. And I think they need validation that you care and that you hear them.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree pretty much with all everyone said. And Deb, it was great having you on the porch tonight. Definitely, really appreciate your insight and your wisdom and what your experience is. I mean, just to summarize what everyone's saying, I do agree. You know, ultimately, in order to change a behavior, you have to change your action. So, in terms of the police, we could go on and on and on about the number of things that could help restore trust in our community. I think we're moving in the right direction now. I think the consciousness of this nation has been awakened to some degree with the George Floyd incident, where, in the words of Will Smith, police brutality has been going on, but now it's being recorded. So I think that is now swinging the pendulum some to where um, folks are being held accountable now, and that process needs to continue on. That would help restore some of the faith in the judicial system and law enforcement. And as far as families in the home, listen, ain't many, like I say, ain't many mamas like Biggie Smalls' mama, in the hood right now. They're gonna put their son out, right, and throw their drugs away, the knowing, having knowledge of their criminal behavior. And a lot of reasons behind that. Chauncey touched on a really good one, though, is like it is sometimes in your family already, and that's something that, with that being the case, it being in your family already, having that loyalty to your family traditions, you're not going to let your grandson or your son, whoever, the cousin that's being groomed pretty much to start taking over the family enterprise. You're not going to tell on them. You're not going to snitch on them. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And then sometimes just, the shame aspect of it all too. I say this real quickly from my family, because I came up from a middle class neighborhood. So I was a resentful young man at 11 years old and started doing juvenile stuff and doing a lot of wild crap. And my mom and them was very ashamed of that. So they didn't even tell other family members what I was doing. They sure as hell weren't going to turn me in, the little stuff that I was doing. But it was until they realized, like, wait a minute, hold it, you just stole a car? They was like, wait, now he getting too far out of control now. And joyride. And when they were like, the FBI came and knocked on this door, damn. So that was where they are like, okay, this is real. And so they were, letting me know, okay, I'm telling you now, like what you said, Deb, if it's your fault, you ain't got no mama. So that was it. That it kind of had with me at that point there. We just swept a little stuff under the rug, trying to save face and not admit to this, but you seem like you out of control. So just let you know, you're gonna stay out of control in jail if you do something again. So, it's not a lot of that. I don't think it's as prevalent because of the family values have changed, y'all. So it does really, with the community, start in the home and the family values and things like that, and the priorities and integrity as a whole, and what you're teaching your children and the right from wrong, and they're doing the things that you're supposed to do versus turning a blind eye. So it is, we still have a long way to go with that, because unfortunately, I think we're regressing in family values now, and the wrong things are being, magnified and supported and overlooked and enabled, and this is why, the young adolescents and teenagers, are very frustrated, they're very frightened, they're very angry, and they're acting out. They're acting out. Young people are acting out, so they're turning to life of crimes. And as we know, the whole story, backstory of gangs and the affiliation of, sometimes they feel like more family than your own family. So we got that aspect that's really a horrible reality that young people are subjected to, in a lot of ways. But having a strong family is where it's going to start. That no nonsense. You ain't gonna do that in my house. Nipping it in the bud from an early age is where the secrets of the Black family, I think, can start to diminish.
I think that was well said by all three of you guys. And again, thank you, Deb, for joining us on
You're
the
welcome.
show.
Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome, and we'll definitely have you back because these type of topics, Deb, they always intertwine with lots of other topics. Like I said, we have human trafficking coming up. I mean, that's a huge one. You know, we have a lot of brown brothers and especially brown girls missing, and you know, that's huge. So we have that coming up, and we hope you will join us on that one and talk about the things that you're seeing on that aspect. So again, join us back on the porch next Wednesday, or you can always catch us on our social media page, Let's Chit Chat Sisters, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So I am your girl Kimmy, and I hope you guys have a good week on purpose. So joining me tonight is
Auntie. Thanks for being here.
This is your boy JB from I'm sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
I don't know why he interrupted like that, because he hate to go when there's women on here. He want all the women to go first, and I don't know how he.
I do. Like yeah, Shivery's not dead. My bag, Deb. My bag.
Go ahead, Deb. Introduce yourself, darling.
Ladies are always first. That's right. That's right.
Go ahead, Deb. Introduce yourself, because I wasn't even worrying about it. Then here he come. Go ahead, Deb.
Hi, I'm Deb. Thank you for having me.
Once again, it's your friend, your boy JB from NC. I am apologizing to the ladies for interrupting that flow, but everybody did a great job. We love y'all for being on the porch with us today. Holler back at y'all. Peace.
Good night.
All right. Good night.